Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the recap or the reaction to the Vuelta España 2025 route that was revealed just before the end of the year. We're recording this on Saturday, 4th of January, or at least I am. I think Benji's in the past. This episode is brought to you by Join Cycling. And we're going to go through it stage by stage, overview of the route, maybe say what sort of rider each route suits, think about whether the route suits any of the big GC riders. I think every route suits Pogačar, but does it suit Roglic versus a Vingegaard versus a Remco? We'll go through that. It's quite a strange route in terms of its geographic density in one region of Spain. We'll get into that as well. And yeah, that's I think that's what we normally do. Benji, how are you going?
I'm doing pretty great, to be honest. I know we're a bit late when it comes to this Vuelta route reaction. That was because I was sick when we were supposed to actually get into it. But honestly, I'm actually quite intrigued to get into it because by now we should have 3 Grand Tour route reactions out. But no. The Giro is nowhere yet. We've got 3 stages announced so far. So it looks like the Vuelta's the second one to announce. So we've got the Tour de France route reaction already up. The Vuelta's now. I'm digging it. So let's hope I dig the parkour as well.
Okay, so we start in Italy. Apparently, and it's all the same region in Italy. Pretty much that these Grand Tours have started. They start in Turin. So whoever's in charge of the public purse in the region of Turin for tourism is a big cycling fan. They've had the Giro last year.
Mm-hmm.
They had the Tour go through last year. And now they've had the Vuelta, so they've had all 3 Grand Tours in the space of about 18 months. So that's where it starts. Starts in Italy, a little bit strange, and then goes into France, obviously. And the first day on, and then it comes down into Figueres, which is in the border of Spain and France. So they don't really do any French stages, except for I think the 4th stage. They come down into Figueres in Catalonia, then work their way up into Andorra. We have an Andorran finish again.
Maybe the reason they don't do too many French races there, French stages, isn't the 2026 parcours starting in Monaco or something?
Yep, starts in Monaco, which will, unless they do laps of the F1 circuit, will have to be in France as well.
Imagine.
Yeah. Why not? And then they basically work their way across the north of Spain again. This route is incredible. It does not go below Madrid, which is maybe the middle of Spain. It does not go below the middle, and it doesn't touch the east coast either at all. I've never seen a route like this because so much of the east coast of Spain is famous. It's where they all train in Valencia, the Costa Blanca. Then there's even the Costa Brava. They don't really do either in Catalonia, and then they don't do Costa del Sol. There's no Malaga, no Andalusia, no Jaén, nothing in the south. It's all in the north. And they work their way across the Basque Country. Bilbao has a stage. They go into Cantabria, the Asturias, and then Galicia. I think maybe stage 15. They've got the Anglerus, some famous climbs. They've got some new climbs I've never heard of, like the Huega, I think. On stage 7, the Bola del Mondo, which is on the outskirts of Madrid, is what they finish with on stage 20. And then they do finish in Madrid. So are they trying to avoid the heat, Benji, or what?
The heat could be a reason, but the other possibility is that they're trying to limit the transports between stages because, we're not flying from one area of Spain to the other area of Spain and so forth. So it's kind of somewhat in order based on what I can see on this map of La Vuelta 2025. So that's another possibility. But I think in the future, it's going to more and more matter the climate when it comes to the Grand Tour profiles and parcours. We already see it impacting the parcours of the Giro on a near yearly basis this time. So maybe that's the reasoning. Maybe it's parkour. I don't know what the other reasoning is.
Yeah, it's maybe just these towns have more money. Maybe the north of Spain, like the north of Italy, has more money, and they can pay more for stages to come there. And also, stages that finish, it's a lot of towns, maybe they have equal money, for example, but they want the stage to finish in the town is always a big argument. Whereas maybe the north, they're happy for it to finish in the middle of nowhere, up the Anglaroo, up Farapona, up etc. Because we do have a lot of uphill finishes in this race. But I guess we never said Happy New Year to everybody. We had a little break over the New Year, Benji. And so as we step into 2025, it's time to reflect on an incredible year behind us, especially with Join Cycling. The Join community grew a huge amount in 2024. We've had a crazy amount of exciting features that were released. The workout player, which I love to use on the trainer. I'll be back using that in about a month or so, I think, in the snow in Andorra. The readiness score, workout history, activity classification, the period tracker, and also the Zwift and Wahoo integrations, which I know many of you use on a daily basis. So that won't stop in 2025. Join Cycling is continually releasing new features, and let them know. You can contact Join Cycling. They're really responsive to feedback on the app, and it will go straight to the people responsible. It won't go through some bureaucratic chain. If you have feedback on what you'd like to see on the app or what you'd like to see change or what you really like as well, the people who are in charge of creating the app and making those features will see that, which is what I really love about the company and using the application. So thanks to Join Cycling for supporting us in 2024. Hope you enjoyed using them, which I know many of you did in 2024, and I can't wait to see what happens in 2025. I think the run integration is on the horizon. Okay, Benji, stage one.
Actually, before we go to the stages, talking about integrations, which riders will be integrated in this Vuelta that we know of so far? Because I think, what was Pogacar already confirmed for the Vuelta, or was it kind of left open based on the things that were actually? Well, let's be honest. I'm personally very believing that he's going to show up for the Vuelta myself.
I'm not so sure.
Ooh. Please say you're bullshitting. I want him at the Vuelta.
I'm not so sure because of Rwanda.
Yeah, but isn't Vingegaard, Vingegaard is planning to go to the Tour de France. I also want to see him at La Vuelta, but the Rwanda parcours is rather climby, I would say. So isn't that also the perfect opportunity for Vingegaard then to show up in the Danish colors at Rwanda? And will that then not also affect the possible Vuelta participation? Will we have Roglic once again being the favorite for the Vuelta?
I just don't think Vingegaard cares as much about the Worlds as maybe the Vuelta. Okay. And or maybe it's also Pogacar goes to the Worlds. He knows he's a favorite. He's like the $1.40 favorite. Vingegaard goes to what? He hasn't done one, So yeah, I don't think it works the same way for him. Whereas for Pogacar, I see it Tour Vuelta, a Worlds combo in Rwanda. I think is really complicated. But he's not doing the Giro.
And Roglic isn't doing the Vuelta either, technically. So no. He's doing Giro Tour on paper. So we don't really know which GC riders are going to show up here. I'm hoping we get a Pogacar Vingegaard combo at the start here personally, because I feel like it's time for both of them to do the Tour Vuelta double with Vingegaard again and with Pogacar for the first time, I'm pretty sure. So I want to see that in 2025. That's my personal January wish. But outside of that, I feel like looking at the parcours, which will go into stage by stage, few sprint stages, but the ones that do exist are kind of versatile. So anyway, I'm curious to see that. Stage one, basically, in my opinion, somewhat of a flat stage. Because let's be honest, it looks like flat, it quacks like a flat, it's usually a flat stage. Torino to Regia di Venaria, so it's the first stage in Italy. Well, actually, my thing here says Torino to Regia di Venaria to Novara. So I'm guessing the first spot is the starting point in Torino and the finish is Novara, 183 kilometers. I went in-depthly into the last kilometer and so forth. There's like a long straight towards the finish line, but it seems like there's like a small bend just before the finish line. So I hope that's just a mistake on the map, because otherwise it's a shame that it wouldn't end on the straight. But start with the sprint stage. Sprint stage will lead to the leader being crowned in the red jersey, but it also means that going into stage 2, there's not a lot of people far on GC. So on stage 2, a lot of incentive to still hunt for that stage victory from the peloton and potentially a red jersey, right?
Yeah. Is this enough to entice people, some more sprinters to come to the race or not?
Ooh, I think for some people maybe, but why don't you just come for a week then? We keep saying this every Grand Tour route reaction or preview. They were like,
But
why
it's
don't
true.
more sprinters come for a week?
It's true. It's not like a lot of other teams are fighting for the GC win or multiple wins. So it's not like all 8 of their riders on the start list are doing a lot. But
Like,
stage
spoilers, there's like 5 sprint stages in the race. And they're actually spread out. So even if you come for week 1, you only got 2 sprint stages. Is that even worth it?
Controlling the break could be really difficult on a lot of them as well. But as Benji said, stage 2. I mean, maybe Benji stage 2 could be breakaway if the red jersey's still on offer. It depends who's going. You know, if Pogacar's there, it's 160 k's from Alba to Limone, Piemonte. It has a gradual uphill finish, not very difficult at all. We wouldn't expect GC gaps. 7.6 k's, 5.4%. Not Rampas in Humanas by any means, and it's a puncher style finish. So, yeah, you'd expect, say, a Pogacar would win in a sprint, and you could take the red jersey there. I would just expect a GC puncher sprint. Van Gils, good opportunity for Van Gils, Van Eedveld.
True.
Those sort of guys. But no, I wouldn't expect any GC gaps.
And yeah, the thing you're saying, the fact that it's most likely going to be like a GC sprint, I'm also feeling that because of the fact that the red jersey is up for grabs. There's going to be one team that's like, oh, maybe our guy can find a way to win this and find his way to get into that red jersey tonight. And it's more likely going to happen for those teams, for those GC teams from the peloton and the breakaway, because you've got to be allowed in the breakaway first to begin with. That final climb, the Col de Tom, the 7.1k, 5.4%, that's just not going to do too much damage. I went into the history of this climb in the past, and this climb was in 2002 in stage 5, won by Stefano Garzelli. Garzelli in my head, like, I entered cycling when I think he was riding for Acqua e Sapone, like a red shirt with like water bubbles on it. I swear, in like Pro Conti division. That's my memory of Garzelli, but the other memory that I have of him is that he was doping and he got caught, and the stage he didn't get the victory, so it was given to Santiago Perez. But I noticed that in that year the gaps were actually notable. As in, there's 9 riders in the first, 9 riders in 10 seconds, 29 riders in a minute. But I feel like I would expect in 2025 for it to be a larger group, and the parcours looked relatively similar, in my opinion.
Yeah, there can be gaps. Like if someone explodes, drops the wheel, because the draft's so important. So, but I don't think, Pogacar could gap people on this. Roglic, it's a perfect Roglic finish, but he can't do it. Roglic's been winning these finishes for years. Can't do it. But yeah, that's, I think they've wanted 3 sprints basically, Benji, in Italy, which is what we have in stage 3 again.
Exactly. It's a versatile sprint though. It's the same finish as stage 5 of the Giro Dawn in 2023, but that was a mountain stage, so we can't really compare the situations in the race. That race was won by Niedermayer, I think, ahead of Van Vleuten. But the finish here after that parcours is going to be a versatile sprint. I'm talking gradients up to 6.5% maybe on the last little bit, but before that it's mostly 4%, 5%. So it's going to be a versatile sprinter winning the stage. I'm just wondering, we've got 3 stages in the Piemonte region in Italy. How is it that we are in the Piemonte region and it's basically 2 sprints and a light mountain stage? Is that a decision? Because you're so close to the Alps, so it feels, my heart bleeds right now, no?
Yeah, I don't know why that is the case. I think I actually, if Pogacar's going, I like what they've done here for the first three
Okay.
stages because, well, like stage 3, he'll be in the mix, but he might not win.
Yeah.
You know, it's between he could be sprint against a Biniam Girmay, Axel Zangler
Yeah.
type sprint, or Van Aert, or
Pedersen.
De Lee, or Ivan Hills again, Bettiol. So I actually like what they've done, even though it looks kind of soft. Like, yeah, nothing's going to happen on these 3 stages that's that exciting
Early
either.
prediction. Lawrence Piffy wins this stage. I don't even know if he's going to the Vuelta.
It's a great stage for Pithy, yeah. It is. Or Pedersen, Mads Pedersen, of course. It's a great stage for him. So it's that sort of sprint, and I actually quite like them. They have one in the Dauphiné and one in Paris-Nice usually every year.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, Benji, I see in your notes, stage 4, from Susa to Voiron, 192 Ks. Apparently, it was in the Dauphiné in 2019 and 2011, but they were versatile sprint stages. I would say this is Benji.
Oh, okay.
This stage 4, excuse me, it's 192 Ks. It has more climbing than you'd think. I think I remember it was close to 3,000 meters climbing and very rolly. And the reason you can't see the climbing is because they do 2 climbs up to 2,000 meters just about. And for the sprinters, that's not a walk in the park. They start uphill, 6K, 6%. So you got to think about how is the stage going to happen, and how does that affect the sprinters? So in the first 12, 10Ks, out the gate, you have this 6K, 6% climb. The breakaway is going to go crazy there, forming. Sprinters are going to get dropped right there. The like pure sprinters, let's say, not the Mads Pedersens. Then they can maybe come back, and then there's another climb to 1900, 9Ks, 5.5%. Descent, another valley, then another climb to 2000, Col de l'Otera, 9Ks, 5%. Yeah, they're not the hardest, but there's some steep sections, especially on the Col de Montgenèvre, and then there's a long false flat downhill. Yeah, there's time to bring it back. There's another kicker, 30Ks from the finish, 1700 meters, 8.5%. The finish itself has a little uphill drag, but it's not that difficult. Like if it was just that finish, pure sprinters would make it. This looks to me like a very tense battle between the breakaway and the peloton, which I think the break has a good chance to win.
That is a possibility, because when I looked at this stage, I thought this is a Tratnik Giro stage kind of vibe. I swear there was a stage at Tratnik, maybe one that had like climbs in similar fashion, maybe a bit bigger the climbs, and then a small hill towards the end. That's the vibe I had looking at this parkour, but it wouldn't shock me if it ends up being a versatile sprint either. I think both are possible. I think one name we haven't really mentioned is Van Aert for these kind of sprints. If he goes to the Vuelta, he's actually won on this in 2019 in that Dauphiné. So he's won there before. Could happen again on this stage 4. But stage 5 is an ITT, 20 kilometers in Figueres, mostly flat. The last, I would say, kilometer, maybe kilometer and a half is slightly uphill. So got to keep that in mind. But I don't think there's any trouble for the pure time trialists on this parkour. And actually, it's a team time trial. For some reason, I read it as ITT, but it's a TTT in this parkour. Well, this says TTT. Is it not? I don't think there was a TTT in the Vuelta. Has to be wrong.
I think it's a TTT, but for some reason, I also thought it was an individual time trial. But the Vuelta loves TTTs. I reckon it is a TTT then.
If it's a TT, I'm checking. You can quack about which team right now would you consider to be the better at TTTs? Because like UAE and Visma, we see them as like the top 2 in those. Which other teams
UAE.
outside of that?
Jayco, EF.
Okay.
Yeah, Jayco and EF are good. Really good.
Jayco's always been that team that is kind of sneakily good at those team time. It is really a team time trial.
They're really locked in. Like they got good riders for it. They got a lot of like 70 to 77 kilo riders who are like quite good for 2 to 5 minutes. And a well drilled EF are really good in the TTTs as well. So
odds on a kiddie pool taking out a Visma Lease bike in this. What do you think? What are the odds?
There's almost always drama in the Vuelta TTTs. In 2019, there was the pool collapsed and everyone crashed in the left-hand corner. In the Barcelona in 2023, there was the thunderstorm and Remco getting angry. So there's precedent for drama in the Vuelta TTTs. But yeah, I would say it depends who if UAE have McNuggets, Pogacar, Vine, Novak, and Oliveira, Almeida. It's a pretty good TTT team. Okay, the first big GC days on stage 6 will be here watching this stage live. 170 Ks from Olot, which is the end of a loop that the riders do that live in Girona and the north of Girona. It's 11 Ks, 4% out the gate, and there's a lot of climbing here. It's just, you're climbing all the way into Andorra.
Mm-hmm.
They do the Collada de Torces, which is 25 Ks at 3.5% descent, long drag through La Seu d'Urgell, and then they do the Alto de la Comella, which I think Nibali has the record on, Benji, 4.3 Ks, 7.4%. Yeah, from that Vuelta stage. It's about a 10-minute climb.
It's going to be destroyed, that KOM.
I'm not sure. I think they were kicking off on it in that race. I'm not sure.
Probably.
And then descent, then they work their way up into La Massana, and then they do the climb up to Pal, 10 Ks, 6.4%. That is fake news gradients, absolute fake news, because this climb is a lot longer than 10 Ks. I'm pretty sure. Well, when you factor it in from the city. And also there's steep sections. There's actually quite steep sections in there. So it's easy. It's very easy from La Massana village to...
We've done it before. We don't need to give the easiness too much credit. Felt pretty hard to me.
Yeah, from La Massana to Urs is easy on the main road. Then you turn left, it's a little bit harder for a K.
Yeah.
And then there's a steep kilometer to the little village. And then up to the ski station where it turns left to some really steep kilometers. Also, I crashed, so we'll be able to see my latest crash was in the corner.
Your blood's still in the corner, right?
Yeah, I think so. So that's exciting for everybody. It's up to nearly 2,000 meters. There'll be GC gaps here. I was thinking, would they not go to Col de la Botella or to Cabus? But actually, it's really easy the last 3 Ks of that, so that wouldn't, I don't know. This is also not so hard, the final K.
I want to do this climb before the riders do. That is my statement. I want to do this climb before the riders do 100% in 2025. But, the 9.2 kilometer, there's a kilometer at 9.2% halfway through the climb, just after they exit the village of Pal, the kind of super Pal area, I would argue it's called. But towards that ski station, the gradients stay at 7.7, 7.4, 7.3. But if it's a group at that point, then it's going to be a sprint because last kilometer is 3.1%. It's set up to be either you attack on that 9.2% segment, or you've got a group sprint like on Arinsal. It's one of the two. But I'm liking the route. I don't expect a first week Grand Tour mountain stage to have massive gaps, and I don't expect massive gaps on a stage like this. But it's a first good sign to see, does this rider have weak legs? Is this rider in order? That kind of stuff, and that's what I'm looking forward to. But then we go to stage 7, starting in Andorra once again, and we finish on, you called it Huesca, I think it's pronounced. I'm trusting your Spanish more than I do mine, that's for sure. But when I looked at the parkour of, let me first say the stage, 187 kilometers in total, 4 climbs if I look at the parkour, and I feel like the first climb's already a bit of a staircase, to be honest, so that's something to keep in mind. It's 25 kilometers at 4.3%. There's a small downhill of 10 kilometers towards it, so maybe a few rollers try and get away before the climb, but the breakaway is going to be formed on that first climb. Then there's a bit of a valley after that climb, but there's 2 more climbs that follow that are, this one is set to be 23 kilometers at 3.5%, I'm sorry, but I'm only counting the second half of that climb. It's a fake news segment as well. And then I look at the next climb, which arrives at about 50 kilometers to go, 60 maybe, is 6 kilometers at 6.5%. But I think this is also a kind of stage where you've got a breakaway forming at the start, and then the peloton tries to catch it or not. And then we see on the final climb whether that breakaway takes the leader's jersey away or not. But if I look at the final climb and looking at it very closely, it's known to be the Aramon Serler Ampriu climb, apparently. And it's 14.7 kilometers, and it's a pure staircase. The first 7 kilometers uphill, you've got gradients 8.8, 7.1, 7.9, 7.6% in there, with a few kilometers that are lower. Then there's a slightly false flat downhill kilometer in there. Then the next 2 kilometers in the middle of the climb, 11.4 kilometers, 11.4%, 11.5%. So that is the launching pad. But after the launching pad, minus 4.5% descent. So you launch, then you got to keep yourself going into that descent, and then onto the final ramp of 3 kilometers before a slightly false flat kilometer towards the finish line. Like, sorry, but this is a very odd climb. But I'm kind of liking it because of that steep launching pad in the middle, you know?
I think this is the biggest fake news stage ever. The whole thing is, it's like 4,200, 4,400 meters of climbing. Every single climb is categorized like it's a moderate gradient.
Yeah.
And all of the climbing's over 8%. Like, and really, really steep. So, yeah, this is much, much harder than the average gradients would suggest. I think there'll be big gaps. Unlike, I can't remember what the staircase was this year where Landa attacked on the Vuelta 24, but it was like on a highway, the steepest bit. Catania had pulled. The stage that the Equipa Confirma guy won, Castrillo against Sivakov and Vlasov. Here the staircase starts off the highway, so it starts on a narrow road, I'm going to assume, for that last 12 Ks. So there's going to be big gaps here, super hard stage. I'm really interested to see. Maybe people use satellite riders because it is a long stage, 190 Ks. There is time to get ahead. So a breakaway can win as well. And maybe they want satellite riders as well for those little short downhills Benji mentioned in this final climb. You know, that's pretty, as you said, a K of downhill, pedaling downhill. That could make the difference, you know. So
I think so.
Interesting stage.
Yes. But I gotta say, when I look at all these climbs so far, hypothetically, if we dream, my dream scenario, I said it at the start of this podcast, I want Pogacar and Vingegaard both at this race. Who fits best the parkour so far? Because based on 2024, you'd say Pogacar on every parkour, no?
Oh yeah, I would say, but the steeper the better has to be better for Vingegaard.
Yeah.
So if we're talking a sliding scale, let's just say Pogacar is the best at everything.
Yeah.
But on balance, it's better for Vingegaard if it's 10% than 6-7%. So the steeper the better. So
for the people that don't know, why?
Because he weighs less.
Yeah.
So when it just becomes down to pure watts per kilo, the odds even up a bit. You saw in the Tour de France, on Galibier, on Pla d'Ardèche in particular, he was getting dropped, but on the actual steep uphill section, he was holding the gap. After the Pogacar attack, he was holding the gap stable. And then on Pla d'Ardèche, over the crest, the gap explodes. Galibier, gap explodes over the top. So, the steeper the better. But here there's also 2 short downhills. I think there's going to be attacks on that middle ramp. Whoever. It's going to be a good stage. I think this is going to be a good one. And the break has a chance too. So I think it could be a stage on 2 fronts. Stage 8. This is the second sprint stage of week 1 from Monzon Templario to Zaragoza. 160 Ks, few rollers at the start. But really, this should be a sprint because the sprint teams have been so starved up until this point.
Yeah.
And there's so much flat to bring back a breakaway, an hour and a half, 2 hours before you do the local lap. So, yeah, sprint.
Exactly. And then I look at the next stage and I'm like, okay, maybe the sprinters will have an opportunity again. No. Alfaro to Estación de Esquí de Val d'Escaray. That is one mouthful. It's already quite hilly throughout. like when I look at a parkour like this, it's like up and down and up and down and up and down, but it's not like there's like specific hills that you look at and you're like, that's a categorized climb. No categorized climbs on this parkour except the final climb. So it's kind of an unipuerto stage, which means that there's only a final climb in that stage. But before that final climb, slight ups and downs among the parkour, which in my opinion leads me to believe that at the start of the stage we'll have quite a bit of breakaway action to begin with. And to me, this sounds like a breakaway victory, this stage. So just putting that out there. The final climb, looking at it, 13.5 kilometers in total at 5.1%. But like you said, once again, a fake news. Is this the fake news Vuelta? I think it might be. Because I look at this parkour of the final climb, 13.5k. The first half is gradients between 6 and 8.5%. And the second half is gradients between 1.6 and 4%. And the last few kilometers are basically false flat uphill. So this is one of those climbs where if you need to drop people, you got to do it in the first half. Otherwise, you're going to end up having to sprint against them. And if it's Magnus Cort that's still in your wheel, you're doomed. That's what I'm looking at.
I think this is nailed on break.
Yeah.
This is, yeah. Here's a Serrada. Emmanuel Buchmann.
Yeah. Buchmann, really? On a flat finish?
He drops them.
Okay.
It's still a long climb. Still 10Ks at 6% after a hard stage. Drop people.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, and that ends the first week. I'd say there's one really hard. Oh, sorry, two proper GC stages. One of which is very hard, but shouldn't be monster gaps, which is stage 7. There's a couple of sprints. There's lots of punchy uphill finishes. A couple of breakaway stages. I think there's TTT. Quite like the first week, actually, for a Vuelta. So I got no problem with it. Stage 10, from Parque de la Naturaleza Senda Viva to El Ferialara Belagua. It really rolls off the tongue, these stages. They're making them longer and longer each year. 170 Ks. And you'd be forgiven for thinking, Benji, what are you doing with the notes? You've done the same stage profile as stage 9.
Yeah.
I also panicked when I was looking at it. No, it's a different stage, but it's the same stage. It's rolling terrain with maybe one category 3 climb and then a 9K 6.5% uphill finish that gets progressively easier. And yeah, it should be a breakaway because it's also not that. There's not rampas in it, I don't think. There's 5.5Ks at 7.7%. 6Ks at 7.5%. Okay, it's reasonably hard, but the last
calling it.
Last 2Ks is 2%.
I'm calling it. This one's gonna be the peloton winning. And my logic behind it is, hypothetically, if Pogacar is at the start, then we've seen in 2024 that they pick and choose certain stages that might fit him. And sometimes they let one go, sometimes they take it to pace and to go for the bonus seconds. This is a shorter stage than the stage before. The final climb has a steeper kilometer in it of 9.1%. For me, this is the one where they go for the stage and where we see the GC group winning. That's my view on this stage. But anyway, stage 11, I'm sorry, but when I look at the stage 11 parkour, Bilbao to Bilbao, 167 kilometers, it's once again the same parkour as we had in the Tour de France 2023, but maybe an amped up version, where you've got the Côte de Vivero and the Côte de Piquet in the parkour. It's basically the parkour of Circuito de Getxo, which is a 1.1 race. Could be wrong in that. Basically a race that we see in Spain and has some pretty good racing at. The Côte de Vivero, or the Puerto de Vivero. Well, I was calling it Côte de Vivero because of the Tour, remember? When they like Frenchified all the names of all the climbs. Anyway, we've got the Puerto de Vivero. I think that's the actual Spanish name. I could be wrong about that. But Alto de Vivero, close enough, to be honest. That climb is 4.3% at 4.3 kilometers at 8%. Second last climb, leading towards the final climb, which is Côte de Piquet, Alto de Piquet, whatever, 2.1 kilometers. And that's a steeper one, 9.4%. But those two are the final two climbs. There's ups and downs before. There's already classified climbs before that of like 4 kilometers at 8%. We've got 4 kilometers at 5%. There's like multiple 5 before we get to the final 2. I really like this parkour, but I'm also like thinking, is it being this late in a parcours, in a Grand Tour? The fact that it's not part of like the opening stages of this Grand Tour, does that not make it a breakaway stage with GC action in the peloton 13 minutes behind?
Oh, I don't think so because, yeah, I don't think they'll be that far behind because it's not a, yeah, I think this can still be a GC stage winning
Okay.
because these last 3 climbs are steep. They got ramps and walls in them, extended sections over 10%. I think there'll be fights to try get satellite riders ahead because there is, from one Vivero to the next is about 25 Ks. It's a long time. Now that does, and the same thing from the last Vivero to the base of the Alto de Pique is 13.6 Ks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's a long time to go solo. So would you really expect early attacks? I think you might see GC attacks on Pique, but you're right. Does the break get a huge release in the middle of the stage? Possible.
Healy.
Great stage for him.
Especially because looking at the first 30 kilometers of the stage, it's already up and down. So I expect a large breakaway to form on a stage like this. And that's why I'm leaning towards breakaway on this stage 11. But on stage 12, I've got zero doubt. You?
This is, has to be break. Laredo to Los Corrales de Buelna. It is 143 Ks. There's a couple of climbs initially. And then the final climb, Collado de Brenes, which is pretty hard, I think. 6.6 Ks, 8.3%. Some steeper sections in there. That crests 22 Ks from the finish. Now, it's going to be breakaway, or even if some sprint team is brave enough to control, there'll be attacks from the peloton on that climb, which they cannot control. So, unless there's Peak Van Aert here, I don't see a sprint. Even Caden Groves, Benji, it's too steep. It's too steep.
Like, Van Aert might as well be in the breakaway on a stage like this. That's the kind of feeling I have.
Yeah. So it's going to be breakaway, or if someone's brave enough to control, like Trek, it'll be attacks from the peloton, like Marc Soler. Marc Soler's going to win this stage, Benji. This is his stage.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me, to be honest. Stage 14? No, I'm not at stage 13. I shouldn't skip this stage, that's for sure. Stage 13 is a pretty renowned finish, that's for sure. Starting in Cabezon de la Salle, but finishing on Alto de l'Angliru. That's a well-known climb in La Vuelta history. We've seen it multiple times. Contador winning in 2017. Hugh Carthy winning in 2020. That's a trivia question, in my opinion. We've got the Roglic and Vingegaard backstabbing Sepp Kuss in 2023 in La Vuelta, also on this climb. I think Roglic ended up winning that stage with Vingegaard in the wheel. 12.3 kilometers, 10.1% is the final climb. That's Angliru. And let's be honest, the first 4 kilometers are 5 to 7, 8%. But then it turns into a super steep climb. 10%, 11.4%, 13.6%, 11.6%, 13.1%, and then a kilometer of 17.2%, followed by a kilometer of 14.3%, and then it starts flattening out towards the top at 3.6%. That is a brutal climb. Gaps are going to happen here. They're going to be huge. There's 2 climbs in advance, but those 2 climbs that come before it are the typical attrition climbs you've got on the Angliru stage. For example, the Alto de Cordal, I think the second last one is, for example, always happens on an Angliru stage. That's to kind of spicing things up, but nobody except Latour is going to attack on that one.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be a battle like always. This is going to be a great battle. I think we'll see if Vingegaard, if he does the Vuelta, this is surely a climb where he would have to try to make the difference. So I think we're going to see a fantastic battle on the Angliru. It's not much. We've all seen it. They have to have it. They skipped it last year. So
yeah.
Who do you think wins this stage, Benji?
But we don't know who's going to be at the start of this bloody race.
You have to pick someone.
Like, there's a lot of stages so far that if Pogacar and Vingegaard are both at the start, that I would have picked Pogacar for. For this one, I'm going to go for Vingegaard because I need some kind of competition in this Grand Tour, personally. And if it doesn't happen on this stage, it's not going to happen on the other stages either for me.
I need to pick. I'm gonna pick someone random from the breakaway who's small.
Lenny
Don't give my.
Martinez.
Yeah,
Great
no,
history with the Vuelta.
he's doing the tour. He's doing the Tour de France. Pablo Torres.
Ooh. Okay. William Junior Lesser from the breakaway then, even though the break is not going to win here, in my opinion.
Pretty long stage, 204 Ks. First 123 Ks is flat-ish.
I don't know how
I don't know.
long the previous Angliru stages
Usually
were.
shorter. Usually
I
like
think so
140, 150,
too.
I thought.
That might actually have a proper effect. 2017
Yeah,
was
that's
117.
Yeah, that's an extra 2 hours of racing in the legs. I think that could increase gaps.
110 kilometers in 2020. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not wrong there. That's a very valid point. Much longer.
So maybe that's on purpose. Maybe it's just logistical. Don't know. But they got no recovery or respite the next day. Stage 14 from Aviles to Alto de la Farapona. We had Farapona in the 2020, I think, COVID Vuelta with Roglic, Dan Martin, and Carapaz. 136 Ks. This is not that hard. Rolling terrain. And then they do the Puerto do San Lorenzo, 9.4 Ks, 9%. Very, very steep climb. Descent, and then false flat drag or shallow climbing for a bit. Then they turn on to the Farapona climb, which is 7Ks, 8.5%, about 1,700 meters. So yeah, just another hard GC stage.
These are those typical profiles where I'm like, if I look at this parkour, the last 30 kilometers looks like the Farapona climb because it's just uphill from the second that they finish the descent of the second last climb, it's uphill to the finish. But then I look at the profile of Farapona and it only counts the last 7 kilometers. So there's going to be already attrition by the time they hit the bottom of this climb. But it's also just a very steady climb, 9% all throughout. So I like this, and I was looking through the forums. I even spent some time on the cycling news forum, which I usually don't do. And a lot of people were pointing out that in the past, the Farapona stage was sometimes before Angliru, and that led people to basically neutralize the Farapona stage a little bit to save themselves for Angliru. I think it's very clever to do it the other way around, to have Angliru after those potential breakaway stage we mentioned, and before Farapona, because Angliru won't let you relax. You will have to go at your absolute best on Angliru, and on the next day on Farapona, people will still be incentivized to still attack. They won't be saving themselves on Farapona like in the past. So that's a nice change, in my personal opinion. But stage 15, that is a parkour where it certainly is not the same as the parkours we've already had. Like, it's got a flat finish, but the first half, like, it starts with 17 kilometers at 5%, so good luck controlling a breakaway formation phase there. Plus, the next 40 kilometers are up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So, breakaway formation, if it hasn't formed yet, is going to keep being hard. Controlling the gap to the breakaway will continue being hard, especially for a team built around a sprinter that most likely has rouleurs in the team. Unless you think about, like, if you have a sprinter in this Vuelta, you almost have to consider getting Juanpe Lopez type riders in your team to make sure they can help control these types of stages, no?
Yeah, but then the problem is you have the long downhill sections, so you want Carlos Verona, that sort of ride is really, really useful because they can ride on the flat a bit more. But you're right, Benji, it's tricky, and I think this is breakaway because it's so hilly in the first 70 Ks that unless the break goes really fast and then the sprinters can take it easy and then they can get into control mode quickly. Yeah, I think this is a big chance for the breakaway, particularly if Pogacar's been taking the uphill finishes, then if you're a stage hunter, this is one of your chances. So, and it also depends on how many sprint teams are there. If Intermarché are there with Binny, Trek with Pedersen, Lotto with DeLee, Alpecin with Caden Groves. Then if you have 4 or 5 teams, okay, then might be a sprint. Could be a sprint. But I don't, it's supposed to be a sprint stage. I'm not sure it will be.
it's also like there's so limited sprint stage in this Grand Tour. Yes, you've got that first stage, which on paper should be a sprint stage. But then I'm thinking, how many sprinters will actually show up for this race? Because we've had years in the past with limited sprint teams being at the start. So how many sprint teams will be incentivized to go for the sprinters in the first place then? Like, is this the kind of stage where DSM starts pacing for Tobias Lund Andersen? Possibility. That's the vibe I'm also seeing. So we don't necessarily have to think about just the top sprinters in these kind of scenarios. But I agree, Breakaway has a solid chance on this one. But talking about Breakaway stage, the next stage has a very big thing in my memory. That was an important stage in the past.
We have the break one here in 2021.
Yes.
But it was not without drama, and the GC group could have won 172 Ks from Poyo to Castro de Revi. It is a medium mountain special with not too many valleys in between the climbs, and this is the stage where Lopez abandoned, said fue un placer, hermanos, and got in the car. And this is where Champoussin was allowed to win by Roglic, but Ryan Gibbons was not on the uphill
Mate,
finish. So indeed, the Breakaway could have won.
how influential was this stage for the career of both Champoussin and Gibbons?
Yeah, hugely. Because, yeah, people thought, Champoussin is going to kick on. And it also, as well, this is where Adam Yates took the foot off the gas going for the stage, and apparently didn't know the time gaps and had Haig on the ropes. And basically, this is the stage where Haig was able to come and move into third because they dropped. Yeah, Lopez was in third, right?
Yeah.
So huge, yeah, really, really important stage. But it's not the end of the race here. It's there's still 3,500 meters of climbing. A lot of that backloaded in the last 74 Ks or so has over 2,000 meters of climbing, which is very, very dense. A lot of it's steep. I think it's going to be a good stage. And also, people are going to need to take swings, Benji.
Yeah.
We've had Anglery, we've had Farapona. There's going to be huge gaps at this point. If you're a Carapaz, this is where you got to go, and this is where he will go. So this is an El Hagua special. This one.
That is literally the name that came to mind when looking at the parkour. It's a raid stage, just like we saw it in 2021. This is a parkour where you can work with. You can, like that year, have satellite riders up the road. Like that year, you can have people bridge towards the satellite riders. I think Podin was one of the satellite riders back then. Like, action can happen from far out on a stage like this. But then the question is, how influential is the next stage on the incentive to attack already on stage 16? Because stage 17 is a mountain stage with a proper mountain at the end. 18.1 kilometers, 6.3%. Before that final mountain, nothing too serious. So it's all about that final climb for me on stage 17. The first 3 kilometers of this climb, 9.2%, 12.7, 10.6. Then the next 5 kilometers are not false flat, but 45% uphill. So steep, shallow. Then the next 2 kilometers are 11.5%, 9.7%, followed by 2 kilometers at 7%. Then it's flat for 3 kilometers. Then the last 3 kilometers are 7 to 8%. Like, if you take away the flat parts, this is a very steep climb. How influential will those flat parts be on the climbing experience? Will the riders be forced to attack on the steep parts? I would guess yes on this climb. And does this climb scare you as a rider to the point that you might not want to do an all-out attack from 50k out on the previous stage?
Or I'm not. No, I think by week 3 they have to go for it with the resources they have.
There was a rest day, no? Between 16 and 17? No.
No, it's between 15 and 16.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, it's like 4 days. 5 days at the end.
Let me see. If they go on what sort of road they're on. So they're out from Ponferrada. I think that they're not on a highway the whole way. So
good.
To be honest, I think they're just going to go for it on both stages.
I think so too.
If someone like Carapaz, he's not going to think, I shouldn't do it. Yeah. He doesn't think like that. So maybe Enric thinks like that. But this is the sort of Roglic stage. He's not going to do the Vuelta, which is a shame. But this is sort of Roglic stage, Benji, where someone would attack him on the second ramp,
Yeah.
the 2K's 10% section. He looked like he's on the ropes. He maybe even would slide a bit. Maybe, and you think, he's on the ropes. Drop him. And then they get to the final bit. He'd come back on the descent, or just right before the descent bit, he'd come back, and then the 3K 6-7% section, he just win the sprint. We've seen that. That's happened a million times.
For me, if I take a look at this parkour, this is the kind of stage where the explosiveness, if Pogacar and Vingegaard are both here, will matter a lot. Because then, if you think about the first 3 kilometers, okay, let's say Pogacar attacks, and he's got the same explosiveness as 2024, and there's a gap in explosiveness to Vingegaard, then he gaps Vingegaard on that climb on the steep segment. But then there's a shallow segment afterwards where Pogacar on paper will gain ground. So does Vingegaard not need longer steep segments to be able to return to Pogacar? Let's say if Pogacar has bigger explosiveness. So I feel like these flat parts help Pogacar against Vingegaard.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you can build out the gap, get a gap and then build it out, then yeah. So I think it's going to be an interesting stage once again. Stage 18 is an individual time trial in Valladolid. It's got one little 700 meter, 5.6% hill, but otherwise is pretty flat. 23.5 Ks, taking them about 26, 27 minutes, maybe a bit less. And it's one for the powerhouses, I would say. It's one for the people that recover. It's yeah, it's a flat TT. I'm gonna pick. Usually, this is where there's usually a weird winner. This is like where someone random wins, right? Week 3, Vuelta flat
Will
TT.
Barta.
Yeah.
Nah, mate, it's the only TT. It's the only flat TT here.
McNulty got no recovery. So he might win the opener. Oh, he's TTT. Decathlon Bissiger?
No. Nice try.
No, not. Stefan Kung, come on, Stefan. This Stefan Kung, come on.
He's going to finish on 2 seconds, and you know it. Of someone. Like,
do Ineos have to send Tarling and Ganna to this race? They can't. The Rwanda course is too hard for them.
Renui TTs are at the same time, no?
But if you send Ganna, Tarling, Aronsman for the TTT, Sheffield, Foss, and then put Carlos in the pocket, and Carlos is sucked along.
I think Ganna should show up, though.
Oh, they have to send one of them. First of all, for the sprints, there might be no sprinters again, and secondly, for the TTs. So,
I'm going Ganna on this stage.
Fair enough.
But
bring us into stage 19, Benji.
Stage 19 is not a time trial. It depends whether it's a solo rider that is ahead or not. But it's 165 kilometers. Did I read that correctly? No, not even close. 159 kilometers. Close enough, though. We've got a versatile sprint. I'm not even going to mangle my words about it. This is a versatile sprint. The last bit is uphill. It's not completely flat up to the versatile sprint, so a bit of attrition in the legs going to that. Is the last week, which opens up the possibility that a breakaway might still win this kind of stage, but it's the most sprint-looking sprint I've seen in the last week or something. So, like, if the sprinters don't get this one, they don't deserve anything in this race. That's my personal opinion.
This has to be a sprint. Although, I mean, who's going to win this? Again, what sprinter? Meersman, Jeffrey Soup.
Gleb Syriza. He can't, sadly.
Nah, Angler is going to be tough for old Gleb, and he's not allowed to ride in World Tour races because he's on the Devo team.
Ridiculous.
Who's a random sprinter? Like Pavel Bittner, you know?
Tobias Lund Andersen.
Nah, that's not random enough. It has to be, it has to be someone just so off the... Paul Mikel. Paul Mikel wins this one.
What's that dude on Q46.5 that now his brother's also there? No, not Moschetti. The Spanish one. Oh, what's his name again?
I know who you mean. Yeah, he's like 30.
He's very nice on Twitter. I don't remember his name though, so now I feel bad.
There you go. Stage 20, the final GC stage, the stage to make it all happen. They've tried to make this a raid stage, but 160 Ks long. We have 5 categorized climbs. The first 2 are just medium mountains, not very steep, where the break might form. Then there's the Alto de Leon, 7K, 7%. Then another long valley of 40 Ks. Then the Puerto de Navacerrada, 7K, 7.5%. That's about 30 Ks from the base of the final climb, called the Navacerrada Bola del Mundo, which is 12.5 Ks, 8.5%. But once again, it's a fake news climb because the first part's not as hard, maybe 7%. The first part of that climb is like 8K, 7%, and then the last 3.5Ks is like 11, 12%. Very, very, very hard finish. The overall stage is 4,000 meters long, elevation gain, more or less. I don't think this is a raid stage at all, Benji.
No.
Because they're just going to wait for the final ramp.
Question. Have you seen this climb before?
No.
Oh, you young summer child. I bring you back. I bring you back to the snowy days of 2010. We've got Vincenzo Nibali against Ezequiel Mosquera, riding for a team, I think, in blue colors or some random Pro Conti team in Spain, I think. We've got the fight of the century on the slopes of Bola del Mundo. And at the end of the stage, Vincenzo Nibali, in the red jersey, decides to gift the stage to Ezequiel Mosquera. That's my canon. I'm sorry. That's my head canon. I'm not sure he actually gifted it, but in my head, he gifted it, okay? So we're taking that. Then Mosquera got caught for doping, so Nibali got the stage anyway. So maybe he knew it in advance that he'd be getting that stage in the future. And the other winner on this parkour was in 2012, Denis Menshov, who also got caught for doping. So far, this climb does not necessarily have a very good history with cyclists winning on it.
Yeah, I think.
But snow and mist 2010. So I'm hoping for snow and mist in 2025.
Snow in August or in September, maybe.
That's what happened last time in 2010.
But we'll see. I think there's going to be, I don't actually think there's going to be that much action in the GC group until basically those final 3Ks, which is what happened on the rather tedious Stage 20 in 2024, which was a huge letdown, of course, to Picon Blanco. Stage 21 from Alapardo to Madrid, 101 Ks. This is the Madrid local laps sprint stage. It's actually harder than it looks. It's actually an uphill kick, which Ackerman has won before, and even it wasn't even a sprint in 2023 when Ganna, Remco, and I think Caden Groves got into a breakaway, and it actually turned into a very, very exciting final circuit, and Groves ended up winning the sprint ahead of those guys. Yeah, it says everyone's on the same time, but my memory is that it was a group went up the road.
Correct. Maybe they got closed on the last meters.
I think it was a pretty sweet stage, actually.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think it'll be a sprint.
The year before, wasn't that when Plappy went up the road? Or the year after? I don't know.
Year before, it was won by Milano ahead of Pedersen and Ackerman in a sprint.
Yep. But two riders were up the road for a while, and I think Plappy was one of them.
Okay. That might be right. And 2020, it was won by, Ackerman's good on this course. So that's the Vuelta course, Benji. We have quite a lot of steep uphill finishes, as is expected. We have some stages that they'll write in the press release are a sprint stage that will not end up being a sprint at all, and you can't trick the sprinters. They're not going to come just because you said it's a sprint stage when you've put 3,000 meters climbing throughout the stage and hills at the start. There's a TTT, there's a flat ITT, we've got the Angler route back. We don't have any stage like the Tourmalet stage of 2023 with multiple high mountains. There's no high altitude. Is the
That's my
Vuelta wasting
sadness.
its slot?
Ooh, what do you mean wasting its slot? You mean it
What's the
being in
point in having the
August?
August September slot and then you don't go over 1900 meters? The Giro's like, come on, we would love to go over 1900 meters, but we can't because we're in May.
Especially for me when it's literally going to areas where there's multiple mountains possible. You know, it's within the Pyrenees for a bit. It's near the Alps for a bit. It goes into the Pyrenees a little bit with Andorra, but it doesn't really go into the Alps properly. So you've really only got, I don't even know what that mountain range is called. You've got the Angliru Farapona mountain range. What is that mountain range called? For future reference?
Picos de Europa, but there's
The stupid name. We got to rename it. Come on.
Yeah.
You can choose the name right now. What are you calling it?
Rampas.
The Rampas region of Spain. Okay, we'll go with that. But
Well, they got, what's the stage that Lopez won? Didn't that go to high altitude or reasonable?
yes.
Alto del Jaimonite. No, Jaimoniteiro doesn't even go. It only goes to 1800.
Yeah, that's true.
Damn, that's a hard climb.
Yeah, it really is. But like when I look at this parkour, I'm happy that Bola del Mundo's back. That's a climb that has a special place in my heart from the past. I like Angliru, although hot take, I feel like they're overusing Angliru.
I think people get hyped. Like people get hyped for it. The crowd's going to come out.
Yeah.
There's going to be GC gaps. It's just a crowd pleaser. It's just it's going to be pretty good.
I'm now being that annoying cycling fan. Like you have those movie fans. Like for example, if you're like a hardcore Marvel fan, and you're like standing there like, but they're only doing things to please the fans in this movie. Like, why can't they just make an original concept for once? That's me right now about the Vuelta.
Oh yeah, there does seem to be a lot of borrowed stages.
I'm just annoyed at the parkour of this Vuelta because I don't have enough multi-mountain stages in it. And the multi-mountain stages that exist, like the Andorra Paul stage has multiple mountains on paper, like the Huesca stage in the first week, those will be fought on by the breakaway maybe throughout the stage, but by the peloton on the final climb. So I've got no stage outside of a raid stage here or there that I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be a GC rider that decides to attack on a large mountain that's halfway the stage. That's not going to happen in this Vuelta.
No.
And that I severely
miss. And the
miss.
guys doing the raid, Benji, it's not the top guys. It's going to be someone who's 7th in GC who wants to move into 4th on GC.
Jonas Vingegaard.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then others will follow because you're like, well, I probably shouldn't let Jonas Vingegaard up the road.
Mate, Danish people will kill me for that comment.
And they tried the Angliru sister last year. They did Quitu Negro from memory. Yeah. That was kind of a letdown. Like there was a good break battle with Castrillo. That was exciting. But from GC, first of all, I think there was no coverage because of the fog. And secondly, they waited for like the final 2K ramp, 3K ramp. And then Roglic kind of just sat on Enrique. And that was that. I don't think it was that good. So they're back to the Angliru and 200 plus K Angliru stage. It's going to be, going to be interesting. But yeah, it is classic Volta route, Benji.
Yeah.
Who needs to do this race?
Who?
Whether it's a sprinter or whoever.
Well, when I think about a parkour like this, whether it's a sprinter, I'm sorry, but there's not many opportunities for them sprinters. So, like, in the Visma Lease bike preview, I was hinting and hoping at a potential Wout van Aert Cobbles plus Giro participation. If that ends up happening, I would expect him to come to the Vuelta. Because he's probably not going to do the Cobble Giro Tour de France. If I look at, like, what did Mathieu van der Poel say again? Was he still hinting at the fact that he might skip the Tour? If so,
Van der Poel.
Yeah.
But he doesn't normally.
For mountain bike, I think he was considering skipping the Tour.
Yeah, Van der Poel of the Vuelta. That would, yeah, I forget about him. Yeah, he would be really good for this race. So especially like stage 3, and even the puncher stage on stage 2. 50-50, probably a bit hard, but I would really like to see Van der Poel here.
Pedersen double, Tour de France Vuelta double.
I think a lot of these guys should be should be realistic. So like Pedersen, Binny, you zero chance in Rwanda.
Yeah, but
Zero.
with
So
Binny, it's in
don't even
Africa, you
turn
know?
up. Pardon?
Binny has to turn up.
Yeah. Binny has to turn up. But like Pedersen, it's just such to do the whole preparation, to go there early, it's just not worth it. It'd be better to go to the Vuelta, because you cannot get a result there. And
Yeah.
the Vuelta you can get many. So
Tim
even for the
Teutenberg.
TTT, Teutenberg's a good call for the sprints, actually. But yeah, like the TT riders like Ganna, Tarling, Kung, the big guys, there's no way they should go to Rwanda when the Vuelta has a flat TT and a TTT. So
what's the TT of Rwanda like? I haven't looked at it at all.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Like Remco beat them in Harrogate with some hills. Remco beat them on the flat in Paris when it's going to have, I don't know how much climbing it has. It's like up and down.
Yeah.
Not going to beat him. So
should Roglic focus on the World's ITT?
I think he will.
He's
doing Giro Tour.
No, Giro Tour? Possibly.
Yeah, he will do well. Whereas Roglic, okay, you beat everybody on a similar course in Tokyo. So
yeah.
He can win World Champs ITT if Remco has an off day.
Who else?
I think Van Aert doing the Vuelta is good again. I think Van Gils should do the Vuelta. I think there's some good opportunities for him in breakaways. There's good opportunities even for him to maybe steal stage 2 if Pogacar makes a mistake.
Who is the GC rider at Bora for this?
Vlasov and Hindley?
Because like parkour-wise, I'm not thinking Hindley. Parkour-wise, I lean more towards Vlasov, actually.
Yeah, problem is Vlasov not that good. So
like Martinez, what's he gonna do? Giro Tour double, help out Roglic.
I think so.
You bought him the Giro. Not that it means much, to be honest.
What's Remco doing? Tour World.
I expect Tour Worlds.
Yeah.
Like his season got decapitated, mate.
Is Remco on Quickstep at the start of August? Mid-season transfer. That would be crazy. Imagine buying Remco for the Vuelta. Mid-year. XDS Astana.
With like a half-a-year contract.
Dude, that would be crazy. How much would you pay for Remco to do the Vuelta for you?
Aren't you like, is it not possible to do a loan for one Grand Tour?
Yeah, you should do loans. Try to think, start loan out loan out Eduardo Affidi to like a team that needs a powerhouse for the team to control the Vuelta or something.
Would you rather? This is going to be so stupid. Would you rather pay? How much do you think Binyam is on contract wise?
For 1.5, 2.
Okay.
Maybe
would you rather have Binyam for an entire season or loan Roglic for the same amount for the Vuelta?
Roglic Vuelta. Without Pog and Vingegaard. It depends.
This concept's quite fun, not gonna lie.
Wasn't that basically what Bora did last year? Like, if you take his salary for like the preparation for the Vuelta and the Vuelta, it probably comes out at about 1.5.
Yeah, it probably did, to be honest. But hey, he tried for the Tour. But the floor came in as well.
I mean, Roglic would win if Vingegaard and Pogačar don't do this Vuelta. Then Roglic should change his schedule ASAP
I
and
agree.
skip the Tour
Or do
because
all three.
this is a cleanup job. Like, there's so many stages he can clean up here.
Yeah.
So
The return of Sepkus. He's got a team time trial instead of 2 time trials.
That's good for Koos, isn't it?
It is, but then again, there's so many finishes that are like gradually flattening out towards a finish where I'm like, this man's going to get gapped by anyone with
It's
a
not good for
sprint.
Almeida, is it, Benji?
I don't think it's very good for
It's a really bad course for Almeida, I think.
Yeah, I actually think so too. Like, he needs the multi-mountain stages in my head.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to do my own pace. It's like, no, you can't do that because there's 1K flat straight after this, and you just rinse and repeat that, and you're going to be chasing without any draft. So it doesn't work. Have we done a Giro parkour reaction? Have they released that group?
Mate, of course not. The Giro will be announced in March at this point. Nah, it's probably in January. Right? No, right? Only the first 3 stages have been announced.
Oh, they announced it's starting in Albania.
Yes.
But they haven't done the route reveal.
Mate, we've gone over this 10 times in the last few weeks on this podcast, and you've like evaporated it from your head, the Giro existing. No,
I swear
they have
to God,
not
I was
announced.
walking back from coffee. I was like, why the fuck has Benji put in that we're doing a Vuelta reaction? We haven't done the Giro yet. And then, because I keep seeing, I get the notification like from the RCS on my phone, you know, the Giro route reveal. And then I was like, oh, they revealed it. It's just like the Grande Partenza is happening
in 5 weeks.
Might. Yeah, so, I didn't read it properly. So when that gets announced, we will do a reaction. But yeah, I feel like Joao Almeida should go the Giro Tour. I don't think this Vuelta is good for him at all. But
yeah, is he?
We'll see.
Was he set to be the Vuelta? Because I don't remember.
I think he's doing Tour Vuelta, and then Ayuso, Del Toro, and Yates are doing Giro.
Like this parkour is not bad for an Ayuso.
I think this is a case of the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
As in, Ayuso was a squeaky wheel, so he gets the oil.
He gets to do the Giro without Poggi, and Almeida has to do 2 Grand Tours with Poggi, one of which doesn't suit him at all.
I'm sorry, but I gotta give it to Ayuso. Also, I'm sorry, but I feel like we know what rider Almeida roughly is, and I don't see him winning this Vuelta. While with Ayuso, it wouldn't shock me if in the next 3 years he wins a Grand Tour.
It would shock me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Mate, Martinez podiumed the Giro last year.
Yeah. But like, I would still expect Roglic to clean up Ayuso in the Giro.
Okay. I'm not so sure about that.
I'm pretty sure.
Guess we'll find out.
Ayuso and Almeida, they've looked really, good at times, look good on stage, and then it comes down to, it, and then they don't got it. So not that Ayuso could have done anything in 2023. Well, he had like no team support, and Visma were really good.
The difference for me is that Ayuso might still have an unannounced ceiling, while with Almeida, I feel like we know roughly what the ceiling is.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Ayuso's only 22 or something. It's not like he's 30 years old. Yeah, he's 20. He's only 22. Just turned 22. So
he speaked. Washed. I'm sorry.
And he had a good year. So you're right. It would shock me just because I feel like with Remco, Vingegaard, and Pogačar, they're going to cover a good swath of the Grand Tours. Okay, that's our Vuelta reaction podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think of the route. Is there enough rampas in Humanas? Very strange they don't go south of Madrid. Maybe there's a reason for that. Anything else from you, Benji?
Can I drop a hot take? It's not a hot take at all, actually. I'm just giving a take. I think it's very much possible that Pogacar and Vingegaard both win a Grand Tour next year. And
Like
that's the
Froome,
take I'm
Contador.
ending with. Well, for me, Froome and Contador are not the same era. For me,
Are they not?
Contador is before Froome in my head.
Yeah, he was.
Half dead Contador was during Froome era.
But like, yeah, but the point is, like, Froome was, say, in 2014, Froome was the better Tour de France rider. Like, you take Froome for the Tour.
Yes.
He rattled off around that period about four Tours de France. But Contador beat him in the 2014 Vuelta.
Oh, yeah, fair. Don't remember. Actually, I do, I think. Is that not the de la whatever stage? The crazy stage with Contador?
That had Farapona. That had Ancares. Yeah. Anyway.
I remember that.
I think
also
you're right,
remember
Benji.
the shit Vuelta with Lopez and Simon Yates.
It would be really good to see Vingegaard and Pogacar against each other outside of the Tour in a Grand Tour. I think that's what everyone wants to see. They want to see them fighting each other in as many races as possible because that's what's exciting. Okay, hope you enjoyed the reaction. We'll see you shortly with a few extra pods, a few more previews, and maybe even the Giro reaction if it's in the next few weeks. Until then,